Welcome back to Fighters Drinking Coffee with Michael Sutherland.
Scott Dance.
And today we're going to be talking about gi or no gi.
This is the question.
No gi.
When to compete.
When to compete, which one to compete in. Should you do both? Should you do one? Which one's better? I assume that's another thing people want to know. We're kind of combining two listener questions here. We had one is how much should you compete? Another one was gi or no gi, which one? So let's talk about both of those.
Get into it.
I think that I also think there's some misconceptions about gi and no gi as well that would be good to get into. So I guess let's start with how often should you? Let's start there, and then we can I think that'll blend into which ones nicely. Maybe.
Sure.
Worth a shot.
That's. I feel like it's a broad question, but yeah, let's talk about it. When and how often you should compete. And I guess my initial reaction sort of is as follows. One, I think it depends on what level of experience and competitive background you have is. Like, are you a brand new competitor doing this for the first time? Are you intermediate or are you like advanced? Have you been competing for years at a high level or even not a high level, just been competing for quite a while? And the second thing I'll say to that is, depending on your answer, really doesn't matter what your answer is the first question. In all of those situations, you should consult with your coach, who for all intents and purposes in this world is kind of like your manager.
Yeah, and they should know pretty well, like your, how they will have a pretty good idea of
vision and goals.
They'll know what you're actually trying to accomplish. But two, they should have a pretty decent idea of like your fight economy, your ability to like how much a match or, how much a match will take out of you. Because I think that probably plays a pretty good part into how often you can compete. I mean, there's people that compete every week and they're perfectly fine, like a couple bumps and bruises here and there, but like there's people who can compete every week and not have like massive shock to the nervous system, right? Like competing can be a lot of stress on the body, but it can also be
and on the mind.
I mean, it can apply a lot of stress to your systems as a whole, but as you said, like your experience will start to lessen how much of the stressor that is. And the more you compete, the less preparation it takes to get ready for the next one. I don't think there's really a correct answer. I think the correct answer is what you said, consult with your coach. But I don't think there's a one size fits all answer. I think a good amount of competition in a year, and I think we've kind of touched on that, like once a quarter is still you're still competing more frequently than the vast majority of people. But just people compete every week, like we said. So, what's kind of your sweet spot right now? What do you think?
For me personally,
yeah.
Well, I'm trying to compete a lot this year. Well, so let me answer that and then get back to sort of what I was alluding to earlier with my thread or whatever.
Yeah. Sorry.
So that's okay. That's okay.
To derail it a little bit.
No, you didn't derail me. I'm railed.
Good.
But I'm on the rails. I mean, I think part of it is like, all right, so there's what we just talked about, like, all right, like your whatever degree of experience you're at or whatever your goals are. If you've been doing this for a long time and you're like a purple, brown, black belt, and you're like, oh, I want to win a major title. If that's a goal and you've shared that with your coach understands that and has helped create a vision or a roadmap for how to do it, working backwards from like a big goal that excites and motivates you is, I think, a cool, and it's fun, it's cool, and it's a good way to structure like a plan that might take a couple of years, but it's a good thing. You might, if you're a coach, tell someone, all right, well, you're not just, if you do this right away, like thumbs up to you, congrats. But for a lot of folks, it's going to take some time to go out and win a major tournament.
Yeah.
Even if you are experienced in the martial art, I say experienced meaning like if you're on the mat a lot, you've been doing it for a while, you may know a pretty good amount about jiu-jitsu, but you might not be the most aware competitor, because it's something I tell people is people forget that it's a game. Going out and competing, it is a game where there are points, there's a time limit, there's referees, there's a mat space, there's literally an inbounds and out of bounds like any other sport you've played. Like there's just elements of the sport you have to understand. It's not just you being a pretty slick whatever rank on the mat. Obviously that's super helpful. That's like the platform or the foundation from which you can merge the martial art awareness with being a good competitor. But I always say good competitors and good martial artists, like, it's not inherently the same thing. You got to learn how to be a competitor. Well, anyways, my point with all that is that you want to have a plan. You want to say, all right, you want to win Pan Ams, or you want to win like a major IBJF tournament, just to pick an example. Yeah. All right, let's work on that for a little while. Let's make that like let's make a plan. Let's make a 2 to 3 year plan for how you're going to do it, or something like that. And so from there, my getting into what I was, you directing this question to me, I think everyone who listens to this, and I'm certain you can resonate with this too. Everyone who listens to this will understand, like, there's other factors of life that you have to figure out too. Like, how often can my schedule allow me to go and be prepared to compete at X level at Y organization with Z level of competitors that I need to be prepared to face. So like, you have to just have like the Venn diagram of like, what do I want to do? And like, what am I capable of committing and preparing to do? I like the once per quarter example for like maybe like newer, or I don't even say like, that's a fair amount of commitment for someone to make, to say every 3 months approximately I'm going to go compete. It means like 4 times a year, you're going to dedicate the lead-in time and preparedness that it takes on the mat and off the mat when you're at home. Like you're gonna modify your lifestyle to prepare yourself to be capable of competing based around like life, work, family, or whatever else you have going on. Like if you know, like I have like a wedding I'm going to, which actually interferes with the tournament that I do every year. I do it every year, so I'm like,
because that's American Nationals.
It's American Nationals. Yep.
Yeah, because it's like the same weekend.
Yeah, and you know what I mean. I have other tournaments that I'm going to do. I'm going to be competing more than once per quarter this year, but in the last 2 years, I've had a multitude of obligations, business wise and otherwise, that have kept me from really doing more than that. That's about what my clip's been for the last couple of years, but I've got some bandwidth now and focus and motivation to go do more, and so. Personally, I'll probably end up competing 6 to 8 times this year, which is that's about twice a quarter, approximately. Anyways, that's that. And I suspect as time goes on, that'll be like, that's probably the sweet spot for me. Like, if the minimum being like 3 to 4 years, because I like doing it. I like staying motivated and having a goal like that. I feel like it keeps me from getting into trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having tournaments means I'm like not going out and drinking, hanging out and doing rowdy stuff and staying out late. So it's like, I like having a reason to like keep myself going to bed on time and eating clean, and, not that I'm opposed to having some drinks here and there and having some fun, but it gives me the ability to structure my life around being like a performance athlete, and not just a dude who's trying to like weekend warrior it. That's just me personally.
Well, and I think that kind of touches on something that's pretty important with like that spacing too, is that I think once you get outside of that once a quarter, you really get into having to live jiu-jitsu, because you have to live like an athlete.
Yeah.
I
know exactly what you mean, man.
Because like once a quarter, you can kind of get away with like every, 1 month out of every quarter, you're hanging out. You return to civilian life, and then you do like 4 weeks off, then you do 8 weeks on, 4. So like you can still kind of have that, you still get a taste of like that non-athlete lifestyle. You're a little beyond the weekend warrior, but you're kind of still in like you
have a foot in 2 boats.
Yeah, you're kind of like a rec athlete at that point. You're starting to step into that sort of, you're kind of touching on that like professional athlete lifestyle, but not year round.
I get it.
So you're kind of more in like the, kind of doing like camps versus like year-round sport
commitment.
Yeah. So it's a slightly different commitment, but you're still starting to reach into it. Like I'll be in that like 6 to 8 this year as well. Depends on a few bookings. in some international travel lockdowns or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, so I'm in a similar boat with that, like frequency. And yeah, like when you're looking at competing like every other month, or in some cases, like it'll be twice in a month, and you really don't take major time off because you're kind of always in, quote unquote here camp, right? Like you get a very small amount of reset time. And like I'm still going to be, I'm also still traveling within a lot of that. And so you really have to stay sharp, because otherwise you end up with all of these things that you also have obligations outside, and there's a lot of opportunity to like stray from the path. And so if you're not really locked in, like weddings, for example, I'm also going to a wedding, and like you kind of have to make it as you have to balance that with your goals and competition as well. So like staying within, once you start to expand it, those things become like a bigger deal in terms of how you manage them. But you're right. It's a different answer for every single person.
Well, and for some people, dude, like that. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I'd say for for a lot of people, probably that foot in two boats, I guess, to call it that way, where, so let's say it's once a quarter or whatever, where like you can have that balance between like part-time focusing, taking your goal seriously, but then also giving yourself, maybe the other half of the quarter. If we're using that analogy, like once a quarter you're competing, the other half your quarter to live a normal life. That might be a good balance for a lot of people, just to not overdo it. So I don't think the full on commitment is for everybody. Or maybe not for everybody for long periods of time. Maybe for short periods of time, people can get dialed in and say, for 2 years I did this and I really liked it, but my vision for my life is just what I want out of this sport. I don't need to be doing X, Y, and Z. But I think every person just makes that decision organically on their own, and they decide what's a good fit for them.
And it ebbs and flows too. Like you're saying there, like they might have peak years and drought years, and
right.
So,
well, yeah, and so I mean, speaking as someone who does cultivate my life around this, it's you have to be willing to say no to a lot of things, like almost everything, and if you're capable and willing of doing that to adhere to a plan or a goal that you have, I think that's good. But it doesn't mean like you're gonna skip out on a lot of things that like people go out and do for fun. Not that you can't do some of that too in your life, but I guess my point saying there's a lot of focus. So you have to really want to do that. And well, anyways, like to the core of the question, like if that's how you're handling things, if that's all of that, I think is related to us saying we want to like encourage people to like talk to their coach, figure out, like really think about what you want and what you're capable of doing, and like what commitment and sacrifice you're willing to make to do it. Then you talk to your coach about like when we're going to go compete, where we're going to go compete, what organization am I competing in, and what caliber of opponents and athletes am I likely to face, and therefore how much work do I need to do to be at that level and competitive at that level. And you come up with a plan. And
you also have to account for what support we'll have at those tournaments and those competitions, because there's some like, there's one I'm looking at that I might not have a coach available for my gym, but I think we're probably going to Louisville together. So
I thought you were talking about Masters Worlds.
Also that. No, not Masters Worlds. I'm not able to, but Nogi Worlds.
Nogi Worlds is in December. Okay, yeah.
But there's some where we're both going to be at. So there's
you'll have to
consider support.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to understand there's a different preparation.
But like you said, you have to think about this stuff.
Yeah. And so you have those. If you're going alone, you also have to consider that, like, how do I keep myself on track? And there's actually, I would say, more preparation for that. Yeah, me, like how do I have my support system if I'm not going to have one?
I think even that like takes like, you just have to know yourself and how you handle situations like that. Like I've competed by myself quite a bit. I like weirdly do well on my own, and I don't know why. I kind of like it. Maybe I just feel like there's just fewer distractions, or like I can just get locked in. But I don't mind doing it.
Yeah,
it is kind of stressful, but
There's different stress though.
It's just different.
Yeah.
It's different, but I mean, to me, it's still all, it's all jiu-jitsu tournaments at the end of the day. But I mean, to your point, man, like, yeah, like it's like logistical planning. Like, all right, well, is there going to be a coach? Will I have teammates, looking 4 to 6 weeks back from the event itself that you're planning out? Like, what kind of preparation will I need to do? So, for example, September in Kentucky, in Louisville, Kentucky, or as the people there say, Louisville, or Louisville. Like, it's just one word sound, but whatever. Like, that's an ADCC tournament, which is different than IBJJF, which means you have to think about that. You have to think about what you're going to do differently under a different rule set. I mean, it's still jiu-jitsu / wrestling. It's still grappling, but it is different. So you want to plan ahead accordingly. You want to start training and modifying rule sets, and like the original, one of the original questions was like gi versus no gi. And I think this is actually kind of related to that a little bit too, which is like, all right, what modifications will I need to make on my training and preparation to be at my best for that tournament? I'll give you an example. I had a fight to win tournament recently. I didn't win. And one of the things that I've diagnosed for myself on that I think is related to this is modifying the way you play those games. Like, I've been doing so much IBJJF versus sub-only style tournaments that it requires different decision making. It's part of my errors. One of my problems in the match was that, like, which, fighting one, making an adjustment on a style. Howdy, partner. Making an adjustment mid-match, fighting with one style of fighting. These sorts of things can cause problems, is all I'm saying. But so anyways, the point is that, like, all right, like, ADCC is different than IBJJF. Like, you should look back, maybe I said 4 to 6 weeks, it should be 6 to 8 weeks, but whatever that amount of time is, you do this consultative work with your coach, you come up with a plan, and it's not always some major grandiose crazy adjustment to the way you prepare, but it could be 1 or 2 little things that you start making those changes in your training in advance to prepare for that rule set. So you're out there and you're right, because ADCC is different. There's no points the first half of the match. No points the second half of the match. The points that you'll have to get in the second half of the match scored a lot differently than they are at IBJJF. Some styles of the martial art, like your style, you'll do well. Have you done an ADCC before?
I've done ADCC rules, but I haven't done.
I've done the rules.
I've done the rule set before, but I haven't done. Because I think the USG had it a similar rule set.
They played with a lot of rule sets back in the day.
I think we did a couple USGs that had like a modified ADCC rule set. But like, so I'm familiar, but I haven't done an ADCC.
Stylistically,
I'll still need.
Well, the thing, I think for like someone like you versus, like, let's say a guard player, for example. And like, different styles will all find a way to win in that rule set. However, your style is good. It's well crafted for the ADCC. Top attack, being willing to stand up and wrestle and not capitulate points, and you literally cannot sit down unless there are circumstances for how you, quote unquote, pull guard in ADCC jiu-jitsu. That's not something you do. That's actually an advantage. So anyways, my point being, like, you may not have a ton of things you change about what you personally, Mike Sutherland will do for that, but like, nonetheless, you want to think it through. But anyways, back to what I was saying about, like, working, planning, and like and collaborating with your coaches. Like, hey, here are all the things I want to do. Here's some, ADCC sounds fun. Let's say it's someone of them, like, I've never done it before, you have, but like someone who's like, I'd like to do that once. I want to do 1 a quarter. I want to do, there's an IBGF in Virginia in July. I want to do that. I want to do the one in February. I want to do an ADCC in September, and then something Nogi Worlds in December. So there's like once a quarter right there, all big, fun, cool tournaments. Talk to your coach, try to figure out when you're going to be around to put in the work.
Yeah.
Like, how often are you going to be on the mat? Are you doing strength and conditioning? How prepared are you going to be? And by the way, everything I'm saying, I don't know, I imagine, like, this is probably more seriously than a lot of folks will even take that. And like, again, this goes back to that, like, hey, how seriously do I want to take martial arts perspective? Some people are out there a little more casual about it. They're like, dude, this is just fun. And that's fine too. But just know yourself, know your goals, and know what you want, how you want, what you want out of these competitions. Is experience? Do you just want to get some mileage in a competitive setting, or do you want to go there and you're like, I'm going to be the goddamn champion? Those are all different ways to think about it. And the champions and regular folks come in all shapes and sizes. There's no one way for that. these different archetypes or whatever, these styles of people to adjust their mental preparedness to what they're doing. But these are factors, right? Should we talk about the gi thing too a little bit? I think it's related to these adjustments too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that actually kind of, it's a good lead into on the misconceptions about the differences. I think a lot of people, especially as you get into masters divisions, want to gravitate towards gi because they believe that gi is a slower game, which I don't think is 100% true. Most of my faster paced matches have been in the gi. My no-gi matches tend to feel slower. I feel like there's there's more pace control in the gi, and I think that leads to a misconception of it being a slower game. Obviously depends on weight classes and skill levels.
I also think masters plays a factor too, because now we're talking about time limits too.
True. The time limits change.
I think in adult, when you watch adult black belt matches, you 10-minute matches, there is a ton of pace control. 10 minutes, even for like a 23-year-old, is a fucking ton of time.
Yeah.
But 5 or 6 minutes, like, you don't have a lot of time.
You got to move quick.
You got to start scoring. You got to make shit happen. Score, sub, like, you got to, like, attack. So, like, it to your point, it may look like not a lot's happening, but a lot is happening. And pace control is super important. But, like, when you have half of the time limit of the adult matches, for example, or just a shorter time limit, like, action is taking place more quickly because dudes are trying to make the win take place in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah, they have to secure their points or get to their submission, or if they're already down, they have a lot less time to work back. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely the urgency is greater in masters because you have a smaller time frame. Depending on how high up in the masters, you might have a lower capacity for pace, which I think is the idea behind putting the shorter time frames. I mean, I'm barely in masters, so like they're basically still we're
6 minutes.
We're basically still adult age competitors.
It's good. I mean, a lot of organizations for adults, ADCC does 6 minutes.
Yeah.
For like trials, they don't start expanding the time limits until you get to like finals or you get to actual ADCC like world level competition.
I think 6 minutes is a good time.
I think it's good. Well, it's entertaining too.
Yeah, it's
most people don't want to watch 10 minutes of two guys playing like lapel guards and not a lot happening. I mean, it's whatever. Like the point being, I think it's still a good contest, and I like those time divisions. I actually think a lot of organizations out there, barring a few of the bigger ones where they're putting like headline level competition they want to give. Like who's number one does I think like 20 minutes to 30 minutes for like main event matches. It is, but it could be like really interesting when you get like Gordon Ryan versus whoever.
Yeah, depending on who the talent is.
Yeah, but for the most part, I think a lot of like we've talked about this in the past, not to derail us, but I think a lot of these organizations who are trying to become like they're trying to draw up the business and entertainment value of this martial art to go mainstream and eventually get paid and pay athletes. I think they're finding that like that short but not too short, let's say 6 minute like time limit for like a good matchup. It brings out the best of the product. And yeah, I mean, if you are listening to this and you train, you know how difficult and physically taxing a 5 to 6 minute round can be with a good competitor. And if you don't train, you don't listen, just trust me when I say it can be very hard. So like it's not like it's easy mode, so to speak.
Well, those time limits, knowing what those are also determines your strategy. Your strategy, how long. I mean, you have to train for the time limit. So if you're training for 6 minutes, you're training at shout out to our strength and conditioning coach, seeing like he specifically has the cardio built for those 6 minute matches. So that you are putting out the right amount of output for that amount of time and you're ready to go. So like that's something you have to consider, staying on kind of the verge here, the break off, but like you have to consider that time frame when you're training. We're talking a little bit about the preparation. So like, if you're training for that versus a 10-minute match, you're training vastly different.
That's right. As it relates to gi versus no gi, my attitude has always been for students or for myself, like what's fun and motivating for you? Like, what are your goals? Like, do you look, if you want to if you want to get promoted in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you need to wear the gi. You need to be in front of your professor in the gi. This kind of academy and affiliation dependent a little bit. Some places will reward no gi guys with a gi belt. Some places do it, some places don't. But like I'd put it this way: you just have to ask yourself, what I think it's like, what motivates you, what keeps you excited about competing. Like, if you want to be like a, so to speak, like a dual athlete, gi and no gi, they are kind of like, it's the same game but different sports. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but you know what I'm saying.
There's a difference. Yeah,
there's a difference.
There's a difference in how you play each one.
When there are specialists in both.
Yeah.
So, but it's up to you at the end of the day. You're like, hey, there are guys now who will exclusively focus on no-gi, and there are guys who exclusively focus on gi, and there are guys who do both. So people who do both really well, and then I'll say generally the specialists ends up rising to the top the most, although there are people who can do both and beat those specialists. It happens, but specialists in both environments tend to rise to the top. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's just sort of like, what do you want to do? What do you want your career to look like? I think it all goes back to like just you as an individual. Like, what are your goals? Like, just what's fun? Because I mean, if like you don't necessarily care about being the best no-gi grappler in the world, you just really like grappling. You feel like both of them are fun and it's engaging. Sometimes you want to change things up a little bit. And you're like, I don't want to neglect my gi skills. I'm gonna go do some gi tournaments. It may not be my number one focus. Maybe we'll do it once out of the once per quarter across the year. You balance it, but it's like, hey, like I don't want to neglect my gi. I just think it's fun and it's cool for me to keep doing that. I really enjoy it, albeit maybe I'm not as good as I am no-gi, but still, just want to push myself. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
but nonetheless,
that's what I'm doing. Like, I'm doing the locals. I'll do like, so for the local opens, I'm doing gi, but when we're traveling, I'm not going to do both.
Maybe you want to be a little more competitive at those.
Yeah,
like I get it.
Traveling,
especially when you're traveling, you're paying for it.
Yeah, rather than paying for two divisions too.
Well, it's also like you want to send your ass out to wherever you're going.
Yeah.
I want to get a goddamn medal.
Yeah, I want to.
It's up to you, but that's another dependent thing too.
Yeah,
sort of like what do you want out of it?
Well, and it being when you're doing it locally, like I'm going home at the end of the day. Like there's a difference too.
Is it research and development? Is it like there's like I kind of call it like R&D versus like like I don't know, going out to the market like for if you want to use that type of metaphor. But you're right. It's sort of like that's a good example. You're like, hey, like this local stuff. It's low maintenance for me. It's low stress for me. It's about getting better.
Well, and I do both because we have a large like affiliation team presence. So doing both, there's a higher chance of getting more team points too.
There you go.
So there's a difference there. Whereas if I'm traveling, there's less people. It's less likely that there's team points to even worry about too. So, doing both locally to really show for the team. And then when I'm traveling, it's
maybe a little more individual for you.
A little more of an individual.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And I like that you said that too, about like the team thing too. It's like, that's something that we don't talk about enough. It's like, be a team guy.
It's awesome. People who wrestle would understand it's an individual sport with a team. With a team aspect. Like there is a team involved, but like you can only control your portion of it, obviously. So like your matches is what you're in control of, but how you do in those affects the whole in a different way. Like how far you get before you lose. And like, so there's other strategies involved from the team aspect of it versus how you're going to do it so there's more to it than just you, but that's not all the time. That could probably be a whole, depth of that.
That is an interesting thread I'm with you, man, because I really appreciate people who value teams and are loyal to teams. Like it's again, tangent for sure, but because this is definitely a sport and an environment that's dominated. It's prevalent that there are individuals who think very individually. They're like mercenaries.
Yeah,
who will float around. They don't really have a loyalty to anyone. So it's to themselves. And like sometimes those people do really well. A lot of times they don't because they don't have a team they stick to. Like the longevity of an athlete who has like a team and a coach, and they're thinking about investing in other people's success that can ultimately help them too. I think a lot of those people struggle in the long run because they've alienated themselves.
Well, we've talked about the concept of like how we talked about in the cross training episode about how you kind of have like a home base, right? And like that is your headquarters. That's where you go for your actual coaching. and then you have other places you can go for training. But
Right.
like, if you don't have that headquarters, you don't have a coach.
Right.
Right. Like, so you kind of miss out on actual development.
Yep.
So there's,
Well, you can kind of get,
Perspective
and you're right. That is, you call back to that episode where like there are guys, like you can find a way to like get that experience and exposure to like other folks and communities. Well, like you said, coming back to HQ, having a coach, having like a home base, so to speak, that helps connect all the dots on your overall progression. You're still getting that exposure to other people. Like,
a good example for that would be like,
I want to say
MMA fighters, Cam too. Yeah, Cam.
Shout out to Cameron. He won his belt yesterday in Austin, Texas.
Yeah,
He won an E5 belt for shit. I don't know the name of the organization. He was at
BJJ World Championship, I think.
Cool. But either way, it's a shout out to him because he does a good job at this.
I'll confirm it in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, he does a good job. He goes and he trains at a few different places.
He's that push, that different look.
But he's always home. He's always kind of circling it all back to home at Silverback or Ascend.
Yep.
I think they use both, depending. But so, it all kind of comes back to the same place. So you have that person to tie everything you learned. Another good example is MMA fighters. They'll have like their own gym that they train out of, but they'll go do camps at different places depending on what they need to pick up, like what things they need for that specific fight, or in our case, event, like tournament. Based on what you're trying to learn, you might need to go train with different people because they might have the tools you need to be the most successful. So you kind of you end up having this travel for training, or, in some cases not far. Like you might be going just
Across town,
down the road, whatever.
It's a worthwhile experience.
So yeah, it's a slightly different. You're training with different people, and yeah, I mean you're getting it's silent. Yeah, BJJ World Champions.
Okay.
But yeah, so your shout out to Cam. Yeah, so like you have that common thread though. So we talked about the glue on a different episode, like having that thing that brings it all together, and the person who knows you. Because that other gym, they don't know you the same way that the person you've been training with for 8 years or whatever, how they know you.
That's
right. So there is a difference there, which is important to recognize, especially for people that we've both known people that have gone to the shiny new place because they think it's going to make them a better competitor.
Yeah.
In reality, it's like, hey, like you could have stuck with the place you were at and probably done just as well and still gone and trained at this other place. But the level of people at a gym doesn't always reflect on the level of that coach to coach you. And it could be, you could go there and it could be the perfect fit for you. Not to rule that out too. Like that's possible, but, it's important to consider that, I guess, is
100%. Well, I mean, I think just to put a bow on it, like really what we're doing here, we've done this, I think probably multiple episodes. It's no surprise. We are who we are. We have our thoughts, but it does come back to like knowing what you want long term, consulting with your coach, having a gi, no gi, whatever, know yourself and what you want to do and what you're capable of. Have a plan. Like really at the end of the day, like what ends up happening is you'll pick your tournaments and you'll decide, you'll map it out, you'll book them or whatever. And you're just going to end up, all that really does, in my opinion, is it just informs the daily behaviors that you're going to be making at whatever gym you're at anyways. So like all these things do is they really just tell you, okay, well, I'm competing in 8 weeks. I'm going to district martial arts every day or whatever. What do I do differently now? How am I going to structure my behaviors and my work when I'm on the mat, and again, off the mat as well, to prepare for these things? So it gives you like some intention behind the time you spend in these damn gyms that we're in nonstop. So, because I mean, I love training, honestly. Yeah. It's not mundane to me, but like, I guess it could be for some people who don't really have, people quit gyms because they don't really have any direction or any structure. And with this gives you a way to say, all right, cool. Well, like, I've got 8 weeks and I do 6 mat sessions a week with the following training partners. Like, I have to be ready to do X, Y, and Z at this tournament, like when I'm on the mat, I have 20 sessions or 24 sessions a month. If you're on the mat 6 times, right?
Yeah.
To every time I've got that hour to 2 hours or whatever on the mat, what are the things I need to take away from each session to prepare for this next tournament? So anyways, the point is that it makes everything very intentional. It just like gives you some motivation, something specific and tangible to work on potentially. It's with your coach, right? Like you have to, you want some strategic guidance or tactical guidance on what you want to do differently or maybe it's not always different. Maybe it's the same, but like get better at it. Like you're making adjustments. You're trying to improve in advance of these goals. So it just gives you, some structure to, and my point was ultimately, it's like, whether you're competing or not, like if you're on the mat all the time, like, yeah, you're on the mat all the damn time. So it's like, this makes that time more useful. It gives you more value it gives you more, intent to extract takeaways when you're training rather than just showing up and getting it done and then leaving, which like, again, a lot of people want to do that. So no problem, but preparation. Being very thoughtful about preparation.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think is what I'm saying. And talk to your coach.
Yeah, and it's actually been it's pretty cool too. You get to see people take when they decide they're going to compete, or in some instances you have a bunch of people getting ready to compete and it starts to drag other people in. But seeing people figure those things out of like, oh, like I'm about to compete, like what things do I need to work on? Or like they notice, hey, like I could use some additional strength or cardio work, and so they go and get I was into Seams on Friday, and he was like, hey, like a couple of your boys just reached out to sign up, because like people start to realize that, or they might be like, hey, I want to work, I need to work on my strength in my weight class, or I'm gonna need more cardio, or they start to think about other things outside of just the jiu-jitsu, especially if they feel like they're getting the jiu-jitsu they need. And so they start to really
think about the things off the mat.
Yeah.
Off the mat. Like there's others alluded to it.
So you can see the people that get serious about it, and like they might only do like a couple competitions a year, but like they want to create the lifestyle around the competition, even if it's, in bursts.
Yeah,
but
it's good for you, man.
It's good. And there's plenty of people that, and I think it's beneficial. I don't think that, kind of going back to the first question, I don't think everyone has to compete. I don't think there's finite amount of competition that you should be doing for your jiu-jitsu even. Like not even just for like sport-wise. For your jiu-jitsu progression, I don't think you need to be doing an amount of competition.
It's individual specific.
It's individual
specific. Yeah.
I think you progress faster if you compete more, because you learn a lot more about your jiu-jitsu. And so you start to figure, you troubleshoot the jiu-jitsu a lot faster. You sort of figure out more jiu-jitsu faster. I don't know if that's like the correct wording of it. But
I know what you're saying. I think it's commensurate with like your ambition and your drive. And you're like, hey, how high up this totem pole, if you want to call it that, like how far do I want to go?
Yeah.
And what am I capable of doing? And then just keep pushing yourself. It's an individual thing. Like, and making that question or concept, I think it depends on the human being. Like I've known people who have like crazy potential and talent, but I just don't seem to give a shit. It's okay.
Yeah. They're like, no, I don't really want to.
I'm like, dude, I had a conversation with a kid on the mat, a couple days ago who is doing really well in the gi. He should have got a purple belt probably like 2 years ago. He's nasty. He's beating everyone's ass. And he's fine. He's not doing anything malicious. But like, he's like dogging people in my class. And I'm like watching him like, fuck, man. I pulled him aside. I was like, I need to talk to the class. And I was like, I thought maybe he thinks I'm pissed at him or something like that. But I was like, all right, cool. I actually wanted to think that for a few minutes. And then afterwards I was like, I was having a little fun with it. But I was like, you know what, dude? Like I put him aside. I was like, man, like, have you been thinking about competing? Because like, I think you do really well. And he was like, he's open to it, but he was a little like, I don't know, like one of those kind of things. I'm like, all right, well, it's up to you. I mean, I just think you would do really well. Like you got some fucking potential, man. Like he's savaging people around. But the point being, maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he's like, dude, this is fun for me, man. Like, this is plenty.
He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to bring it to that.
He's had some injuries in the past. He told me, and he's like, I've competed before and this and that. We had a good chat, and I think he kind of like I think I did. I give him a bite. I give him something to think about and chew on it and digest it. And he'll come back in like a week or two and say, all right. I think maybe I could do it. But, I can't force the guy to do it. I want to encourage him. No, for real. Like, I want to encourage this dude. I think he would do really well. And, I can introduce him to the idea and let him kind of, like, that's what I'm doing. Like, let him come to me and say, yeah, dude, I think I do want to give it a shot at that. And then we can have that conversation about that plan. So I think this kid would do really well. Anyways. But if he doesn't want to do it, hey, no big deal, man. It's good to have him on that.
It goes to your point, too, that, like, it's about their goals, too, right? Like, if he has no aspiration of competition, you're not forcing him to do it. And even if his goal is just, I just want to do one, you would support that too. 100%. Like that's important. And some people, yeah, you're right. Some people are like that. And it's good. It is still good to have those guys who are killers on the mat that don't want to compete. They're still helping the guys do. Yeah. They're still out there working them. And, they're a guy who's like that. It's almost, sometimes they might be a better training partner than the other guys competing because they're not getting ready for it. So they can just be a good training partner.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So there's benefits there.
You need great people on the mat.
Yeah.
Just simply put.
Yeah. They don't have to be competitors to be good.
100%. No, I mean, there's so many guys out there who are freaks on the mat who don't compete.
There's a guy I give a little bit of shit every week because I think he should compete.
You're so fucking good, bro.
But he doesn't want to. So it's, you can.
I've talked to guys who's like, I just don't want to deal with the weight cuts. Like, I like eating too much. I'm like, yeah, fair enough.
Then don't. Don't cut weight.
Like, yeah, that weight cutting shit sucks, dude. I'm like, it does.
You're right.
All right. Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if that's what it takes, if I can't convince them to get past that, no problem.
Yeah. Not a big deal. So,
shit always happens. And again, like you said, like it's super valuable to have. Like, I mean, those types of dudes help also cultivate that tough competitive culture in the room that motivates some folks to want to go compete. So it's like, dude, you need both.
Yeah, you do need both.
You need both. And those guys being dedicated and training their ass off on the mat and still getting fucking awesome, getting nasty, maybe beating some competitors. A lot of times they do. That's great too. Fuck yeah. Because I mean, that's what competitors need. They need like dudes in the room. Yeah, shoot them to their limits.
You need someone you need someone who can make you have to work because otherwise you won't.
Yeah.
For that, like if you can just smash everyone in the room, you're probably gonna get lazy.
We talked about this in one of our last episodes, the student and coaching one, where it's like you make, like, if you're doing your job right, everyone gets better, faster, hopefully faster than you do. And you're like, oh fuck, these guys are threats now.
You're like, oh, I need to get better.
Yeah. That's these, I feel like a good gym environment, a good training environment can cultivate all of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. If we're doing our jobs correct.
Oh, definitely. I had a guy that we're training right now. I'm like, I kind of took for granted the skill gap in wrestling for a little bit. And then they all like started getting better at wrestling. And I started, I was like, I have to like start actually wrestling you guys now.
I know exactly what you mean. Wrestling it's this, I mean, I love it. I don't honestly say hate it. I don't hate it. I love it. It's just, what's cool about it is that, and this is, I have a feeling this is why a lot of like high level black belts don't do it, because they don't want to be white belts again. They don't like getting beat, which is hilarious. Because that's like, for me, man, when I go into the wrestling room, like I can wrestle pretty well, but the guys we wrestle with, man, are like fucking nasty. I mean, if I just went in and picked people in wrestling class that I could beat, maybe sometimes that's okay, but like there's like, let me rephrase. I'll put it this way: if I want to put myself in a situation where like I'll get my fucking ass handed to me in wrestling, I can do that every class. Maybe I can hold my own pretty well. That might be making myself sound like I'm not as capable as I am, but like my point is that like there are dudes who will like force you to be sharp as a motherfucker the entire round because they're just too good. And they're so much better than me. Like I have to think through so many facets, like technique, strategy. Sometimes it's just athleticism because that's all I've got. Like, sometimes that's all I've got. Like where I'm like, this guy is better at wrestling people. Like maybe I can move a little faster. Then I have to make the entire round a fast as fuck round, which is fucking difficult. That's why wrestling moves. It's very difficult. But the point I'm getting at is
there's like, ability to live in the chaos and like, succeed within like the speed, chaos, and athleticism.
But it's not the most technical always, right? You have to like merge the two.
Because you get into like the scrambles and the ability to like thrive in that scenario is, I think that's why it's so successful of an art in the other ones.
Well, and just if I may, the only thing I was going to say was that it's just, the point with that is like this. I'm not going to be the best guy in the room with that. I'm going to be forced to work.
Well, and it's kind of funny that you're talking about like keeping up, like, and
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it is what I'm saying.
I find that I do better in my wrestling when I go against somebody who's a better wrestler, like who's like a higher level wrestler, because I think I get sloppy when I wrestle against like I get away with things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like I think I don't wrestle as well.
No, I get it. They force you to sharpen your sword, and if you look at somebody like, I can do whatever I want. You're so casual. And by the way, I've done that. So with like new dudes who I've like even helped mentor, they're like starting to make me
just hit this one move,
and they're getting better.
Away with this
Honestly, the shout out to Will. If Will hears this, I'm gonna say his last name. Will's a dude in the wrestling class who like he's getting so good. Man. Not that I ever like played around with him or anything, but like it's you put it this way. He was like a white belt. Now he's like climbing up the ranks. He's getting fucking good. Dude attacks you now. It's like, dude, it's Will's gonna be coming after me, man. Will's my guy too. Like we do a lot of rounds together, and he's just like, you can't like. It goes back to the same thing we were saying with like jiu-jitsu, where it's like you train these guys, they get better. Then you're like, all right, I now have better training partners. And that's fucking sweet. Also, it's cool to see him get good as fucking.
Oh,
he's working his ass off. He shows up all the time. That wrestling class is brutal, dude. If you can consistently go to these wrestling classes, or people who's like, it's just like a nonstop sprint for about an hour. Like it's just, hats off to the guy.
Yeah.
And he's getting nasty. He's getting tough. And cool. Now I'll have one more really badass dude to like keep me from being a lazy bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Keep you from that's what you need in the room. It's for sure what you need in the room. This we've covered a broad spectrum.
This is good though.
This is good.
Yeah.
And like I think the wrestling thing, it's a big part of it does play a lot in the gi versus no gi too, because you have a lot of guys who wrestle that do no gi and the gi. So the game that competition you see there is gonna be different necessarily than what you see in the gi room, like in the gi tournaments. I personally prefer no gi.
Yeah, me too.
But we'll put on the gi. But I think that ties back to who you'll see in either one. You'll have no gi people that you're gonna end up seeing more wrestlers there, or people who might be more willing to wrestle, because a lot of no-gi does base on that. A lot of no-gi practices and the gyms, especially gyms that focus on no-gi, they do, a lot of them do more stand-up.
They should.
Wrestling.
No, they should. I know what you mean.
Because there's less you can rely on. But yeah, I mean, competition, no-gi, gi versus no-gi,
preparing with your coaches,
how you prepare for, like, there's a lot of stuff that we touched on today.
Have a plan, think about your goals, know what you want to do.
And I hope
do both. Do whatever's fun, man. Do whatever keeps you on the mat for years. Right?
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the thing. What's going to keep you motivated for the long term?
Do what makes you enjoy the sport.
Right.
At the end of the day,
right.
Like, don't compete if it's going to make you stressed out and burn out.
100%. If you have a weird toxic relationship with this,
like
it's not. This, I think that was a good way to put it there at the end.
Like, do the thing, do what makes you stay in the sport the longest and makes you enjoy it. I don't want people doing this sport just to compete and then like develop a weird relationship with it that is based around like, I have to succeed. I have to be the best at this. Cause like that's probably why some people don't.
That's definitely what it be.
So, do what makes you do it best. I hope this helps some people hope this can help some people kind of pick a pathway in it as well. And I know we didn't like do a whole lot on the gi versus no gi thing. Because we're relatively new.
It's like,
do what's best for you.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we need to have like an entire conversation.
No.
Like all the gripping and shit like that. I mean, like we kind of touched, here's the thing with like what we talked about, the preparation. Go to your coach and you will need to do things differently because the uniform is different. And that uniform makes a big, big, big difference. Yeah, we don't need to get into like the minutiae.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to need to prepare for the lapel and this and that. That I don't believe that's as necessary to the core I'm talking about.
No, I agree.
That while it is relevant, like, yeah, I mean, well, let me put it this way. It's super necessary, but like your coach should handle that for you. Me and Mike can't handle that on a podcast.
No, I can't tell you what you need to do. Maybe there's a way we can figure that out.
Yeah, you can pay us a bunch of money and we can consult, but like at the same time, like we don't know what this person's doing.
Yeah,
but, like, the coach will.
We don't know all of the listeners. We know some of you.
We know some of we know a few of them, but like
we might not be able to. We can't help you personally, listener number whatever.
If you want a specific conversation about like tactical guidance, put that shit in Discord. We're talking about that too. But
reach out, shoot us.
Yeah, I mean that stuff's fun too. But I think we've hit on the actual answer.
Yeah. That's Fighters Drinking Coffee. Yeah. Same as usual. Like, follow, subscribe, hit that review button on Spotify or wherever you listen. It helps. Sends us up the algorithm.
Tell some friends.
Let
put your friends on.
Pass it around the gym. Give everyone. I think you can scan a Spotify code.
Oh hell
yeah. But keep listening. Follow us at Fighters Drinking Coffee on Instagram. And yeah, guys, just keep listening.
Bye.
TTYL. Bye.